Welcome, guys. Welcome to the Premed Live podcast. Today, we have Mr. Roger Henriquez. Uh, he's a very dear person to me. Roger, I hope I didn't butcher your last name. Did I pronounce
No, that was perfect.
Okay. And sir, you are welcome. Thank you. Thank you for taking time out of your day to help us enlighten us pretty much in this sector.
Yeah. Thank you
Yeah.
for having me.
Thank you. Absolutely. Guys, if you are new to the Premier Live Board, welcome to the TPO fam. You are definitely welcome. I hope today's conversation will be helpful. I also do hope you've subscribed. If you've not done so already, hit the subscribe button. Yeah. Hit the bell notification icon and like the video. Yeah. It helps with the YouTube algorithm, so that more Premiers out there can hear this good message. And we can all, improve and be successful together. Roger, thank you again. You're welcome to the Premier Lifeboat. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself? Who is Roger? Where are your roots? And how did you get into the financial sector? Yeah.
Sure. So my name is Roger Henriquez. I was born in the Dominican Republic. I grew up in the Bronx and have been a New Yorker pretty much my whole life. I've been here since I was 5 years old and 30 plus years now of living in New York. I'm a product of public education, so I went to high school and everything in New York City. Then I went up to undergrad upstate New York at SUNY Binghamton. And after that, I started working at a large bank where I currently am a product manager. So I help develop and deploy products to solve issues that our business has or that our clients have. Work closely with technology as well as really get into the weeds of some of the financing products that we kind of work in the fixed income space. So that's a little bit about me, but I'm always I met before through some different organizations, just networking. So it's always good to kind of have that mesh of people in different sectors trying to learn from each other.
Thank you for that. By the way, I can see you rocking, the Black Stars here. Unfortunately, they couldn't make it past the group stages of the World Cup. Very disappointed. But due to some poor decisions, we have some good hope. Yeah, but hope without action is meaningless. So
but I will say that that World Cup final was, I think, one of the most amazing finals I've ever matches I've ever seen.
Ever.
Yes.
Like, it's written in history. And by the way, kudos to Messi for cementing his GOAT status.
Oh my gosh.
No more debate. So that's that. Anyways. So Roger, let's jump straight into it. What has been so today, by the way, guys, as you see in the title, we're gonna talk about, the relationship between medicine and the financial sector, the marriage between those two. How is it going so far? Where is it leading? Roger's also going to give us some advice about, some finances, to help all of us as young people, and so stay tuned for that as well. So Roger, let's dive into it. What has been your relationship personally with medicine so far? And what do you really know about the medical field like that? Yeah.
I think so. My relationship with medicine so far, like I mentioned earlier, I grew up in the United States, New York, but I have a lot of family abroad. And specifically, I had family that very recently, was going through some very expensive treatments, very long process that in the United States, thankfully, if you have insurance, you can, and you live in the right location, you can find, healthcare that is not accessible at all outside of the United States. So I do want to, I know, at least from a conversation in this point, my experiences, and I'm sure a lot of the experience you've seen today is, and maybe listeners are people in the United States, but I always take that context that there are people that there's a healthcare system outside of the U.S. In different countries, and the disparities are very different in terms of if you don't have the money, you may not get any of the quality care that you really need. So at least with me, what I've been exposed to the most is thankfully my family that I'm very close with, they were able to get the care they needed. It's very expensive, but they didn't have to pay anything really out of pocket because of the health insurance that they had. Um, I've also have some exposure just with the healthcare sector, just meeting other people either who work in research or even within my company, we have obviously a kind of healthcare financing kind of line of business that at least the ones that I work with specifically are more, or have interacted with specifically, are more focused on institutions rather than some on the smaller scale. But I do have just basically some exposure, at least to what it is that they do.
Right, right. And so thank you for that. Let's talk about high school experience, college experience. Um, where do you get that interest from to go into finance? Like, yeah,
Yeah, I think with me, especially in high school. So I went to Brooklyn Technical High School, which is an amazing school in New York City, because it really lets you explore your interest, whereas some schools you don't necessarily have that privilege. By that I mean my high school had majors, so they really structured it like it was university. Your first 2 years, you're mostly taking you know, the same classes that everybody has to take, your English, math, sciences. They may include some other classes just to kind of expose you to different things. So I took some technical drawing. We took some like basic, like almost like an engineering class where you make like chairs out of cardboard, things like that. But then they say, okay, your sophomore year, choose a major, right? And if you want to say, I want to be a bio major, you get to take some classes in that level. I wanted to be kind of, I thought I wanted to go into like law or I like history a lot. So I kind of took that kind of as my focus. Um, and I really enjoyed this subject, but I realized that I didn't want to practice law. So then when I applied to college, I already had that like scratched off my list of things I wanted to explore. So I went into undergrad undecided, but by that point I kind of just after speaking with a few people, I realized I wanted to work with people, and I was interested in business, and it kind of after that I started taking some classes doing the work required. I really liked economics actually, so that's kind of what first exposed me to thinking I wanted to work in something related to that field. I That was one of my favorite classes, even from high school when I was like the liberal arts undergrad. Economics, microeconomics, how certain actions drive people, and your individual decisions drive the macroeconomy, and how decisions that the government makes really drives, like monetary policy drives things like, can I afford to buy a house right now or not? So that's what really led me into business, and kind of set me into my way. And I've always been interested in technology, so I did a business kind of major with a concentration in management information systems.
nice, nice. You mentioned you said microeconomics.
Yeah, macroeconomics, that's kind of, so there's microeconomics and macroeconomics, and the difference between the two is really one focuses more on kind of overall decision. It's the study more of when they say macro, it's really like monetary policies that governments do, and kind of like large decisions.
Yeah,
Microeconomics is more a study of individual kind of you know choice, like cause and effect, or benefit versus cost of like things. That's all economics, but different kind of at a large scale versus individual kind of decision making.
All right. So college experience, right? Let's talk about pretty much now. Let's dive into it, right? Like medicine and the financial sector. Um, what has been your experience with these two areas? What do they benefit each other? What are some of the problematic issues pending? Yeah, just we
Yeah.
can roll that. Yeah, anywhere you
Okay.
want to take.
Sure. So obviously, just to start, I'll say that both medicine and finance are very large fields, and even their interactions are like there's so many different interactions with it. You can talk about it from institutional level to individual level as a person who needs to receive healthcare, or individual like I want to start my own business, right? So at least in the United States, I think it works, but there's definitely room for improvement in terms of how healthcare and finance work today. And I'll start with how what I mean it works. If you are a new doctor and you want to start your own practice, right? After you obviously have the skills for that and you have the training, or you're a doctor that wants to switch to your own practice or open up and say, hey, this is an area that needs more doctors, more whatever practice I have, and I want to start a new business. It's extremely difficult to do that without having capital, right? Money. And that's where finance comes in. You can go to different institutions or different people that say, you know, I need either a loan, which is the most basic thing, everybody understands that, or you'll get some investors, which is a little bit more of a partnership. And however it is that it's arranged to say, I need to start a capital, or you buy into my business, and eventually, we'll figure out how much of the revenue, you'll get. It allows people in this country to start a business, whether or start their own work for themselves, right? With the help of this capital. That's what financing does. That's what the financial sector does. It connects um, people that want to start, or expand, whether it's healthcare or another system, and they find and connect them to people that say, hey, I'm interested, I have this money and I'm interested in investing it. I want it to grow over time, but I have some rules. Like ideally, I'd like to invest it maybe in the financial sector because, I'd rather, I don't just want you to give my money or lend my money away in some way, or, I want to be able to jump in with these people. So that's where it helps a lot. Right. And because it's really difficult to not just like location, right? Make sure you're staffed properly, make sure the equipment, everything that comes
Yeah.
into all these things
Yeah.
is very, very expensive, and you're not going to recoup the money right away. That's where financing comes in, right? um now the other side of it is sometimes the people that are starting these businesses are running it more for just for the sake of money, right? As a business, as opposed to just um, really providing the quality that people need. They try to cut corners the same way as any business, right? And that's not necessarily have to do with the financing side, but if there's no controls in place, that's what ends up happening, right? And by that I mean cutting corners. I mean not staffed properly, trying to do more with less, or overbooking, or all these other things. And that's what I'm saying. There's room for improvement because it shouldn't just be a kind of capitalistic thing where it's on the financing company or the financial sector, but it's you can say, and I don't have too much experience with like only government run, kind of uh, healthcare, right? But there is some incentive when it's private to say, hey, if it's my business, I'm going to take care of it more. I'm going to maintain the facilities more. I'm going to make sure it's nicer. and that kind of needs to be balanced out. So that's some of like at least some of where financing comes in. The other side is more on the side where I have some exposure to, which is even hospitals, to say, hey, this is expensive to run as one individual hospital for multiple reasons, right? You have to pay administrative staff, you have to pay for a building, a hospital isn't necessarily going to make money every time. Like if everybody's doing well, or, whatever it is, like it's, or certain, they can't support certain surgeries, they have to kind of do it away. Whereas if you have a bigger pool of hospitals who say, hey, we can pool our resources and, you know, that makes it easier to run, instead of having one president for just one individual hospital, you have one president, you pay for three, right? And then maybe it's easier to manage resources in the same way. Emergency services, you can kind of say, okay, like here's where we're going to staff it properly for this region. A lot of different things just make it easier to, called economies of scale, which ties into economics, by the way. Economies of scale is how you drive down costs by, increasing the number of people that you serve. Um,
We're talking about mergers. Is that what we're talking about?
yes, yes. So I think that is a big part of what probably needs some improvement from the just financial sector as a whole. But I don't know, I don't necessarily think that is uh, the reason some of these mergers happen is because in certain areas, the current, we have a gap in terms of government, how much government financing certain hospitals get for the people that they need. So it's a lot harder to run let's say, a hospital in a rural area, right? Because you still need a minimum amount of staff. You still need to, um, you still need to have a certain number of staff in order to run that hospital and effectively, but you may not always have patients coming in all the time, right? But you need to have it because things like COVID happen, or maybe you don't have that many patients and when it's warm, but when it gets cold, it does. Like, I don't know, all these types of situations where the hospital is serving a public good. If you have just mergers, these mergers, some of these businesses are, hey, they're like, hey, we're in the business of like trying to make money or at least not lose all our money, right? I'm not, you know, uh, just doing that, running it that way. So that's where if you don't have adequate government financing to say what is the bare minimum to at least keep you guys like at least this undeserved area, as a public good running, you kind of run into these conflicts where um, different companies may try to merge, take it over, reduce services that are really needed by those communities. So then the kind of financing business decisions drive questions that really should be left to healthcare administrators in terms of what does this area actually need in terms of to have proper healthcare, right? And I'm not just talking about emergency services, like does it have enough primary care practitioners, things that will eventually prevent people from getting sick, until it's too late. Whereas some of those things don't necessarily make enough money to keep the lights on, right? Um, and the other side of that is obviously it's not a big issue in the United States, but as a consumer, right? I may need financing, right? Like if you have proper healthcare, then hopefully you can go to a doctor and get the care that you need before it's too late. But in other countries, if you don't have any money, you can't get healthcare, right? And even in the United States, maybe you have private insurance, but if you don't qualify for, if your insurance, if you don't have insurance and for whatever reason you don't have government insurance and you don't qualify for anything, there's people that go into bankruptcy and lose all their life savings because of the way the healthcare structure today. I'm not sure that's necessarily a financing issue in terms of just more of how it's currently structured, today in how our current, kind of healthcare financing government structures our system today. But there is a benefit of having it there. Like I said, if you only go to one side, which is capitalistic financing, only private, then you may run into what you see in some other countries where people don't have any healthcare, right? Or never go to get healthcare because they don't have the money until they're literally dying. Then it's like, okay, let me go. Um, if you go to some government places, some people will tell you, and I'm sure there are government, other countries in the world that do have fully nationalized healthcare, and it works, right? You may have to wait longer if to get the service that you want,
Yeah.
but for them it works. And then for other ones it doesn't work. They'll say, yes, you can go, but like by the time I get to see this doctor, you know, I'm going to quote unquote die, because it's going to take me 4 months to see this, to get diagnosed with something that really needs to be seen, sooner rather than later. So I think all of that drives, it's like a tug of war in terms of like, how do we incentivize people to go into healthcare, businesses to invest in it, and also bring everything together so that you keep everybody getting the best quality of service that they need.
Yeah. I was about to ask you, thanks for bringing that up, whether you believe in universal healthcare, and what is the best way from a financial perspective to implement that, if you believe in that.
Uh, I think everybody should have access to healthcare. So yes, I do. Um, I think the best way to implement it is similar to what we have today, where it's a kind of public-private model. Um, in the U.S., at least, the problem we have right now is our government can't negotiate like the price of medicine, right? Which is a big thing as to like why certain medicines are so high. Um, the I'm not sure if it's a fully government, like only government healthcare will would work in America, just because people are very, I want service today, this, that, and the other, right? So I think there is an incentive to have kind of what we have today, where there's some government sponsored healthcare, as well as private healthcare. Where the gap is today, not everybody qualifies for, any type of. There are gaps in terms of, you know, healthcare for right people, or at least maybe it's not subsidized enough for certain people, anyways, right? Even if there is some, of just saying, even if you can get some type of government healthcare, people don't realize you still have to pay for it unless you're below a certain bracket. But then some people say, yeah, but what you're telling me to pay is too much for what I make, and then my private company isn't giving me good healthcare, so it could be better. Um, I think I don't know if that answered it in terms of how I think it should be implemented. That's I think a question that's been out there for a very long time,
Yeah.
and people debate it. I did like what was implemented in terms of Obamacare. Because it gave an option to a lot of people who did not have an option, in terms of that option is competition. So if you don't like the insurance that your company is paying for, you can go on these exchanges, you can try to shop around, and hopefully these different insurance companies have an incentive to, get you as a customer, right? When I was talking about economies of scale before, the more people they have, the more benefits them, because what they're hoping is, okay, there's all these people paying into this insurance. Hopefully not all of them get sick at the same time, right? And then they have, and
Yeah.
then and then the number of people, of sick people, help offset the cost for people that are sick when it really does happen, right? Um, but yeah, I think that's my answer for that in terms of implementation.
Okay. Okay. And anything else you want to hit on before we dive into like other stuff?
No, I think we hit everything. I just wanted to mention that we only scratched the surface, right?
Mm,
In terms of how big both sectors really are and where they intersect. There's so many different touch points. Like, for example, we were talking specifically healthcare and you know, both at the small, and I gave some examples of um, how you might get like financing for a small business or how financing and healthcare deal with like large businesses. But there's also research funding, right? Like this, in order to build new medicines, companies need funding. You need healthcare. You need to find people that say, I want to invest my money and I'd rather go to something good, like a company that's researching, you know, biotech companies that are researching things that I think, you know, are going to benefit humanity or solve problems. Um, and I also want to make money, right? And I'm not just saying this as when we're talking about the people that invest in these companies. It's not just obviously there's a lot of people that are rich and have a lot of money and put their money together and invest in it, but there's also like pension funds,
mm,
right? There's also just individuals that say, okay, I have some extra money. I'm just gonna put it here, and somebody's gonna somebody manages your money, invests it, and says, "How do you want me to invest your money?" You say, "I want you to, you know, whatever returns the best for me, so that I can retire in a good way." But don't make sure it's not going to like a gun company, right? Make sure it's not going to anything of that nature, right? So you are aware. You say, "Okay, I got some rules as to how I invest your money." It says, "Well, here's some options or here's some things that, you know, I'm an expert in these fields," or they find people that are expert in those fields that, you know, are educated in healthcare or studied research or got their, you know, higher education degrees and can really read what type of research is this company actually trying to do. Are they just trying to, you know, pull a fast one on me, like an individual that doesn't know anything about biotech? But then you give your money to a person that says, okay, here's, you know, here's what it is. I can kind of understand the science. It's a legitimate company.
yeah, thank you. Thank you, Roger. So a lot of our listeners are in your teens, the demographics, right? In your teens and in your 20s, right? What are some financial mistakes that you made during these times or in the past, you know, in your teens and your late teens and, you know, 20s? That you looking back and you're like, huh, I could have done this better, you know, now with the knowledge I have. And also, what are some financial advice that you have for us? Yeah.
I think one thing that I wish I didn't get into, even as somebody that works in finance and has the benefit of, um, you know, working in this and knows exactly what the value is, I didn't start investing as early as I would have wanted to. Like, as soon as I got my first job, I put into my 401k, and people will tell you that all the time. The reason you, if you're at a if you start your first job, you put your money in a 401k, that's coming, that's like a government, that's a company kind of program. So a 401k is kind of going to be your retirement account. One, the earlier you put into it, the more money you're going to have, like in the long run. And by that, I mean, if I started at 22 and I put in my 401k and somebody, for whatever reason, is like, I really can't afford to, you know, take even 1% from my paycheck right now, right? I'll start once I start making more money, or I'll start when I'm 30 or whatever. You have to put in a lot more money when you're 30 than the person that put in at 22, because that money starts growing as soon as you kind of put it in at 22. So, and even then, you may not catch up to the person that was at 22. So there's a lot of, you know, graphics online that will tell you like it's called the time value of money. It's, you know, compound interest. It's a great thing. So thankfully, I started that when as soon as I started working, I put the bare minimum to get. they call it like a company match. A lot of companies will say, okay, you put 3%, the company will put in 3% for as well. So they automatically free money that you're gonna get. So I did that. What I didn't do was I always thought like, oh, you needed a lot of money to just, you know, invest. And really it's not, right? First things first is everybody says save, but really saving could just be $10 a month, $20 a month. Just put something that you don't even have to think about, because if you do have to think about, you're not going to do it, right? It's just $20 a month. You put it there somewhere, or you have it automatically going somewhere where you don't even know the balance. You just put it there, it's saved, and then when an emergency happens, you have an emergency fund, right? And an emergency could be, you need transportation one time, you know, for whatever reason, like, things just happen. You need to get food. So all those things is the, always did. So as soon as I could, I didn't start even that mindset of an emergency fund until I actually started working. But it's very important to have that, because you never know when one day, like, something happens, you just, without having to get into credit card debt, you say, oh, it's $200. Oh, at least I have 50 or 100, right? Because a lot of people put stuff on credit cards and they just start paying it off little by little. But if you pay something with a credit card without paying it fully off within a month or two, the balance is going to be more than what you originally borrowed anyway. So just wanted to bring those things up in terms of, from a kind of personal finance standpoint. The other thing is, in terms of mistakes, I would say, honestly, I do feel like I should have at least looked into things that I'm interested in, and saying, how can I be educate myself more about this industry? Because a lot as a young person, you're kind of exposed to more, and you don't realize that that is information that other people don't have, because you're only surrounded by people your age. So everybody around you has that information, right? And by that, I mean, in high school, I was into video games, right? And even with investing, I thought you need to have hundreds of thousands of dollars, right? Or whatever. You could put, instead of, like, spending money on, like, going somewhere fancy or whatever, like, if you're being, or just on clothes one time, let's say, hey, I'm going to take this $30, right? Instead of buying this t-shirt, I'm going to buy off this, like, logo for, like, Nike. I'm going to buy some Nike stock. Guess what? That's free money. That's, you're like, listen, no matter what, 10 years from now, Nike's going to go up.
Yeah.
Right. And obviously Nike's a big company. I'm using as a common example. Right. But all these things that you used when you're young, that you're really into, that are not as big as Nike or not as big as Apple, at some point, they're like, yeah, duh, I should have put some money into that. But really, that's the time to do it. Even if you don't have a lot of money, you can put a little bit. And then when you really need the money, you're like, hey, instead of buying a t-shirt, I put some Nike stock. A year later, you could buy like 5 t-shirts, because it's like, more people catch up on the knowledge that maybe you had, and now it's gotten, like, better. So that's just some advice of, like, uh think about things that you're interested in, and just say, hey, is this something that, like, is going to help me in the long term? Like, and it doesn't mean everything has to be that way, but, you know if you see everybody's buying Starbucks and they just started up, or a competitor to startup to Starbucks, right? You're like, hey, they're gonna get big, right? Or maybe not, right? Maybe you just don't invest into it. But at least the way I had to, kind of separate my mindset was, um, not everything that you spend has to be something that is just gonna go away. You could use some of that money either to save it, or spend it, quote unquote, into something that's gonna grow. Whether that could be a company, that could be a class, it could be a skill. there's a lot of things that, nobody really thinks about because we're all surrounded by the same type group of people.
Mm, mm. Okay, thank you. Since I have you here, let me ask you about this because there's been a lot of talk lately about recession, the US dollar or whatever. Talk a little bit about that. And also, if you can explain for us, what do we normally mean about when we talk about stock market price, I mean, crashes, right? Stock market crash. And the best way to recoup after such a thing happens. Yeah.
Right. So I guess a recession and a stock market crash, I guess the best way to describe it is if at least the stock market, usually people say like the Dow Jones or S&P 500. S&P 500 is the top 500 companies that are put in, like, basically they group them up and they say, okay, here's the value of these 500 companies, right? And by that, those 500 companies, you're going to have like literally the biggest companies in America, right? So you have your Google, Amazon, Walmart, you know, different sectors, right? And healthcare, entertainment, whatever. So when there's a stock market crash, it's saying, hey, the value of these companies or has gone down by a significant amount, like more than 10% easily, right? Why that's such a big issue? People, and not just rich people, right? If you are a teacher, you are working in any industry, right? How is your money set up for retirement? You say, okay, when I start getting paid, 3%, 5% of my paycheck is going to go, to an investment account, right? And that investment account is over time meant to grow by they take that money in that investment account and invest it in these types of companies, not just the S&P 500. It could be companies outside of it. Maybe it's self-managed where you say invest it in, healthcare companies because I know healthcare very well, right? Or companies outside of the US because, like, or however you want to separate it, or however, it's managed automatically where you don't even have to think about it. I just know that I'm putting 2 or 3% of my paycheck into this retirement account. My company, because I put in 2 or 3%, they're saying, okay, if you're putting money to your retirement, we're going to invest in your retirement too. We'll give you we'll match that 2 or 3%, right? So now you have 6%, right? So when the economy crashes, guess what? The value of that money that you invested in these companies has also gone down. Now, that's not necessarily an issue when you are 20 years old, right? Because you're not looking to retire anytime soon, but you're going to care a lot about it as you get closer to retirement age, right? Because so if there's somebody who's working in an office or working somewhere, and it doesn't have to be an office, any type of job, they have money in a retirement account, they care about how much, when the economy, when the stock market goes down, because that's real money that's grown over 10, 15, 20 years, to say, hey, I was depending on that money so I could, you know, have a bigger paycheck. So I'm not just dependent on Social Security. That's, in simplistic terms, one of the reasons why, we care about it so much. Also, these companies, just to be a little bit more, I guess, finance major, these companies, that's how they raise money, right? They say, hey, invest in me. I'm Walmart or I'm Target or I'm Amazon. Invest in me. In exchange, you are considered like you have a, a stake in the company. So it's almost like you have an ownership stake. And then if we make money, the value of the stock goes up, or we'll pay they call it a dividend, which is like a very, very small percentage of our earnings to you, right? Depending on how many stocks it is. So they do that. You say, okay, you give me the money, and then eventually the value goes up, and then you get to sell it whenever you're ready. You're saying, okay, I don't need it. I don't need any more. I don't need your value to go up. I put in $1. It's valued at 180. I'm good. At that value. So it's not just retirement. People obviously invest in it just so that it's it's making more money than if it was just in a bank account, right? But there is a risk that if it's a company that is obviously not doing well,
Yeah.
right, because of COVID, or the company isn't being run effectively, right? They go bankrupt, you lose all that money, right? The way people minimize that risk is saying, okay, I'm not putting all my money in one company. I'm going to invest it in the top 500 companies in America, right? Like, hopefully not all of them are going to do bad, because if it is, then you kind of have a problem.
Okay. So, man, okay, it's a lot. It's a lot we keep talking about. So we're just gonna end it for you. That's a lot. But let's see. Maybe in the future we have a part two of this because a lot of information. But guys, I hope this was productive. This was helpful. If it was, please hit the like button. Yeah, it helps the YouTube algorithm. And let's just say big thank you to Roger for his time, the information that he has given us today. I know it's going to go a long way for everyone. So thank you, Roger. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And guys, until the next episode, have fun. See ya.